Hello, everyone. Welcome and good afternoon. Um, Thank you, first of all, for showing interest in the PayU's virtual hiring drive brought to you by WiT. We do understand that at any given point in time, when you're looking out for new opportunities, there are a lot of questions, there are a lot of doubts which an aspirant candidate has. And our initiative, our intent is to answer as many of those questions as possible before you sign up for a job or before you take up the job. With an intent of answering pretty much all your questions, I would believe I have the honor of having Priya Cherian here. Priya is the Chief People Officer or the Chief HR Officer of PayU, and she is here with us today to answer all the queries that you have regarding the specific positions that you may have opened up, about the work culture, about how PayU is going about pioneering in a lot of ways the new technology and new fintech technology in the country. So Priya, welcome to this show. I'm sure all the participants who are here, we have a lot of people joining in, will have a lot of questions to ask you. Before I introduce Priya and we start with our conversation, to all the participants out there, would like to mention that on the YouTube channel where you are watching this particular feed, you can type in your questions in the comments box, and I'll be glad to take them up with Priya during the course of our conversation. So please feel free to ask all the questions you want to during the course of the conversation. Uh, so before I go into the questions, I'd just like to introduce Priya by mentioning that she has like kind of a vast HR experience across multiple HR geographies and industries. Currently, she is holding the role as the global CHRO of PayU, which includes 18 high growth markets. She's also responsible for supporting PayU through the final stages of the business transformation, as well as co-creating and nurturing a cohesive PayU culture, which I think is really very important for any HR leader in terms of creating a good culture. Prior to PayU, Priya had worked at Alibaba, where she was heading HR for APAC and Middle East. And at the same time, the company was on its path of strengthening its global operations, so she was in charge of that. And prior to that, Priya has headed HR for eCart, the logistics arm of Flipkart, and has also done roles in Yahoo and Renault. So Priya, welcome to this particular event. I'm sure we will have questions pouring in once we start our conversation. But just to begin with, I would probably like to kind of just set the ball rolling by asking you that you have been in this internet and tech space for a large part of your career. I mean, I was going through your profile. You were in Yahoo when probably we were just learning the bits and pieces of internet, and a lot of places in the country would not have been so connected the way they are now. And there has been so many changes in this particular industry we've seen across so many years, be it the financial crisis, which obviously led to a lot of things. Now the pandemic, which is just accelerating growth like never before. I just wanted to, kind of just have it hear from you, like, what has been your experience of this particular industry, your own experience, your own career journey, to just set the ball rolling.
All right. Thanks so much, Pratik, and hi, everyone. Good to be here. I mean, in fact, when you were going through the career profile, I'm like, okay, well, I may have forgot about some of those. Thank you for the pressure there. Appreciate it. So yeah, no, I think it's been an exciting few years for myself as a career. If I look at it, what we've gone through, and also if you look at the revolution that the industry has gone through, right? I mean, the last 15 years, as you know, the space has had a complete overhaul, right? I mean, to give you some of the statistics, from 330 million internet users in 2015, India is now over 500 million active internet users. So that just says the magnitude of the change that we are seeing, right? The internet growth and the smartphone penetration, you hear it everywhere. It's gone from 2% in 2005 to 32% is what is projected in 2020, right? 2020 it's 32%. It's pretty much revolutionized the entire ecosystem across industries. And e-commerce boom, as you know, it's expected to grow from it was at 38.5 billion in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, and it is up to 200 billion by 2026 as a projection. So that just talks about the magnitude of what we are seeing here and how fast things are moving in and around us, especially those of us who are based in India. Right? Of course, the internet revolution. I mean, you talked about Yahoo. Yahoo was the pioneer in many ways in that space. It has redefined the industries across the country, from messaging, your WhatsApps, to your transport like Olas and the Ubers of the world, right? And of course, with the new pandemic situation, the digital services actually saw a huge uptake as never before. I mean, it has changed. It brought in many changes in industries like edtech, your Byju's, fantasy gaming, e-pharma, medtech, hyperlocal services, and digital payments, of course, right? So that's sort of what we are seeing. So when you come to my current, situation in the digital payment segment, actually, India began its digital payments journey, if you remember, in the early 2000s, and from there we saw some spectacular growth, right? 3% of all the payments in 2005 was digital. To now, it's estimated to be around 58% by 2025. So that's huge, right? 1.8 billion UPI transactions in September 2020 alone, to give you some statistics there. So massive shift for the merchants to adopt digital payments. And most of us have seen that during the lockdown. Many of us who've been reluctant to using digital payments have been sort of adapting very quickly to, paying our bills, through digital mechanisms. So that's sort of what, we have seen, in the last few years, Pratik. I mean, and I think more to come. It's just the beginning for India. I mean, it's just
I recently got a message. Interestingly, you mentioned Yahoo. I recently got a message that Yahoo is doing away with their Yahoo groups, which I think were hugely popular at one point in time, late 2010s. And I remember we were in campus at that time, and we used to communicate through the groups. Obviously, WhatsApp and all was not there. And it was just one of those things which are just going away. So, I mean, even in technology, we are saying things, kind of going away because we are obviously seeing orientation towards newer things. We do have some questions coming in. Akansha and Hema have mentioned, but I think we will take these questions, when we go deeper into some of the aspects, because I have that kind of baked in. But if I kind of draw that attention of yours from, let's say, the larger tech conversation, yes, so much is happening. There is so much, I would say, in every space. We are women in tech. We are seeing technology almost impacting industries which it had never impacted before or never had penetrated before. It's going even in those areas as well. So, I mean, I'm just looking at it again from a candidate point of view and trying to be in the shoes of a candidate. I know you were probably there when you were evaluating, joining PayU some time back. Being in that industry, being from that industry, what were the things about PayU that you really liked, which prompted that move? Because as you all know, you've kind of joined around 10 months ago. And again, things have kind of changed since then. But from the point of view of the candidate, what were the things that got you attracted? What were you evaluating? Just wanted to have your views on that.
Sure. No, I mean, number of things. I mean, it took me time to kind of really make a decision on a change. I mean, because with Alibaba, which was my previous employer, had the responsibility of managing the business growth in both Asia Pacific and the Middle East region, which was really exciting. A lot of great learning, a lot of great things which we were able to accomplish together there. So for me to move out into something else, it took me a little bit of thinking, and what I really wanted to do after Alibaba was really something which I had to kind of be sure of. So when actually Naspers or PayU came my way, a couple of things which really piqued my interest. One is, in India, fintech is one of the most exciting sectors to be in today, to be very honest, right? I mean, like you said, the Yahoo days when Yahoo was the pioneer, and I think now it's fintech. Fintech is the game to be in for this decade. It is, the space is very dynamic and, undergoing a huge transition at this point, which by itself brings in a lot of excitement. At least to me, that's where I want to be. I want to be where there is action, right? Where things are happening. And of course, PayU has a very unique culture, right? I mean, so the parent company is Naspers. It's a global company. PayU is a global company with global values, but huge focus on India as a region. Huge focus on India as a region. So that was one of the key focus areas for me when I decide on something. I want to make sure that I'm in a place where I can make a difference, right? I don't want to go into a place where everything is so set and decided on. I want to have that space where we can make a difference, make that impact for the organization. And PayU definitely was at that stage in its journey where there was that opportunity that it presented, global, but at the same time local. And of course, when I spoke to the different leaders in the organization, was very clear as to the alignment which I saw in terms of their thinking around values, which is also something which is close to heart for me. So in terms of the five values that we have, which is like the openness, integrity, collaboration, courage, and ownership. I mean, so when I talk to different people, that's something which I always look at: how consistently do they actually talk about those? How consistently do they actually represent those values? And it should not be something which is written on a wall for everyone to see. You want your leaders to be actually walking the talk. And I saw that during my conversations at PayU. And these were two or three things which actually really attracted me to be part of this journey.
Impressive. So I think it was the right mix again from your past experience to where you were heading, and which is kind of leads me to the next part, wherein I'll also take some of the questions that are coming in. So, I mean, again, fintech is an exciting space. You just alluded to that. We've seen that, after demonetization, we're seeing accelerated growth right now. There are multiple players in the market, and which is where I would want to probably go into a little bit into the specifics of why should one join PayU. I mean, we Hema has asked a question about how are you onboarding employees at the time of work from home, which I think has been a challenge for a lot of organizations, and everyone has stepped up for it differently. Tintu asks, that what are the various employee benefits. So I would kind of put it in a way that how is PayU differentiating itself from the competitors, from other companies who are in this space, both from, let's say, a business and also an employer standpoint? Because I think more than ever before in HR or in general in business, the wellness or the care point has never been emphasized more. So I would probably like to just kind of have your views on what are you as a CHRO going about addressing that particular challenge, because it is a big challenge, we all know.
It is, no doubt. I mean, this is like it's overused term these days. It's unprecedented times, right? I mean, it is one of those times when the employee well-being is of prime focus. Before I even go there, there are the two ways I look at it. I mean, like, what is our business USP and what is our the employee USP that we provide, right? From a business standpoint, I mean, PayU's vision is very audacious, right? Is to develop the full fintech ecosystem, providing multiple, digital financial services. So that's our primary goal. And of course, it provides the best-in-class products and platforms, and exactly the reason why we are the choice for majority of the top e-commerce merchants in India. We are also a strategic fintech investor. We invest in a lot of fintech companies that create alliances through our investments. I mean, so we have these small the companies that are part of the ecosystem whose vision is aligned to our bigger overall vision as PayU, right? So we do have a portfolio of investment companies that is part of our fintech profile. And we are actually a global company with local experts. I mean, so this I say to my team all the time. We are uniquely positioned in many ways as a leading fintech player in the high growth markets. And of course, being in the fintech arm of Process, we have the unique advantage of a whole host of world-class resources which are available to us, right? I mean, so in many ways, we are uniquely positioned as a business to get to the audacious goals that we are going after. So now we're coming to your question, and also the question coming up on from the audience about the employer or the employee USP that we provide. We are an employer that is focused on talent development. That's one of the primary focuses that which we have as a team. Upskilling our employees is a primary focus area for us. So anytime before we go out and hire somebody, we want to make sure that we have a talent pool that is internally ready and looked at to see if he or she can actually move into the role. So that's the goal that we have for ourselves. All the way from AI training for our employees to whether it be leadership development for the new and upcoming managers in the organization. We have a whole slew of that. Second is about the fact that we have a very entrepreneurial culture, right? A culture that is nourished by a lot of people. And in fact, we take pride in saying that we've created a lot of entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, right? So that's something which we actually is uniquely positioned to present to our employees. You have the end-to-end ownership of the vertical that you handle, which is not very common in many other industries or many other companies. Of course, we do care deeply about our employee well-being. Number of benefits. I mean, we'll talk about that if we get an opportunity as we go along. But number of initiatives that we take care of in terms of our employee well-being. We do have an employee well-being council that has come together, which is represented by both employee population as well as our talent from the business as well as HR. We do employee surveys, to understand what our employees are going through. And based on the results that we get from the survey, the team actually solutionize for those issues. Of course, some of the things which we've done is, performance management process at PayU has seen a dramatic change or shift in the last few months to adapting to the new reality as well. The last but not the least is our focus on workplace diversity. We have a global diversity and inclusion council that actually works very actively on our objectives and goals as a company towards what we want to accomplish. We have a number of initiatives to ensure that we improve the women representation in the various levels in the organization, ensuring that we provide the same kind of experience for our male and the female employees in the organization. So these are some of the other things which we actually offer as our USP. At a very, very high level. I'm just not even
Yeah, and I think it's required to probably delayer it a little bit. There are other questions coming, but I think this is important, and we should probably spend more time discussing these parts. And I will go into the business part of it first, and I'll then come into the employee benefits, which you just briefly alluded to. But in that standpoint, you mentioned a lot of stuff that is going on in terms of how your products and you're uniquely positioned. But if I have to kind of go a bit deeper and understand in terms of, let's say, from an employee standpoint, we are through this particular virtual drive hiring for certain roles. You are looking at data scientists, data engineers, backend developers for your products. And a lot of times, while you do all these things, I would like to probably ask you in terms of how is that adding up into the overall, the plan for PayU in terms of where it is headed from a business standpoint? If you could just, kind of, let's say, add that together and tell us where you see PayU going from a business standpoint, more again from a product and from a customer facing sense, that what exactly are those details which you should probably watch out for. Again, more from trying to understand it from an audience perspective.
Okay, so let me make sure that I understand your question right, Pratik. The question mainly is about what is next for PayU from an offering standpoint. Is that what you were?
Yeah, I don't want to go into the commercials and the numbers in terms of how much money and all of that, but more again from a product standpoint, because again it is a space which is, I would say, very competitive. There are a lot of products coming in every time. So what are you looking at in terms of positioning yourself more from a business standpoint for the end customer?
Yes, so see, there are certain things I would probably turn that into what is that if you as a potential employee who wants to join PayU, what is that you can experience being part of that journey? Because obviously, what is our future strategic roadmap? There are certain things which I might or might not be able to share in an open forum.
Obviously, yeah.
So what I would actually look at is if you join PayU at this juncture, where, like I said, our goals are fairly audacious, we know where we are headed and what we want to accomplish, what is that you can expect as an employee of this organization at this point? Is that a fair way of?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, great. So, like I said, in PayU there are multiple unique advantages that we have, right? I mean, one is the fact that we have a very entrepreneurial culture, like what we talked about. So you have the end-to-end ownership. It is a company that is deeply focused in the region. It is deep rooted in India right now for what we develop in India. So which means if you become a part of this ecosystem, you have the end-to-end ownership. I mean, as opposed to many other companies where it's a staff augmentation model. So you're actually taking, something from a team sitting somewhere else and developing for another market. Here you're sitting in the market, end-to-end ownership and developing for the market. So that gives you a full end-to-end experience, which you don't probably gain in many of the other organizations. So that's one of the unique value props which we have, like I said. And plus on top of that, I mean, Pratik, like I said, we have the luxury of giving that experience to our employees by having a very strong financial backing. I mean, like I said, Naspers, which is the biggest technology investors in the world, is our parent company. I mean, so you have the backing of Naspers. So while at the same time we function as a startup. So think about it in the real world of, like, if you join a startup where you don't have to really run around for where your financial backing is going to come from. And that's the experience which PayU provides to its employees. And many times I've seen our employees raving about that being the unique feature which attracted them to being part of this organization.
Perfect. I think yeah, you've kind of summarized it well. I just wanted to probably bring that aspect out. So apologies if I missed framing my question in a certain way. But I think we have a lot of questions coming in, and I'll probably just go and club a few of them, which I mentioned here. Specifically, I think Akansha is asking what are the opportunities for freshers, and you mentioned your focus on diversity in terms of the employee policies you have. Do you have a separate program? What will be those opportunities if a fresher is interested in PayU?
Yeah, no, actually we are very serious about our college campus relations, especially this year is the first year when we actually developed the more strategic, view or a vision around how do we really want to build our future pipeline. So starting from building our relationship with certain campuses to making sure that we have an opportunity to bring freshers in and groom them into positions that they can take on maybe 12 months down the line after they join are part of the plan. So again, we are not in a position where we can 100% rely on only freshers. Of course, I mean, no organization can do that given time. But now is the time when we've realized that we need to start thinking about future long-term versus being reactive. Many times when somebody leaves the organization is when you go and post a position and go after the talent in the market. Instead of doing that, we want to make sure that we are ahead of the game by ensuring that we bring in junior talent, groom them for these positions as we go along.
Which I think is also the most recent question that has come, because I'm just toggling through them and taking up the most relevant. In the sense that the great culture you have, how do you ensure that there is a proper, I would say, development path or the ramp up from a new grad who's coming to kind of ramp them up for the opportunities that you're there. So in the same breath, if you could just share that also, I think that would be relevant.
Yeah. So are we a perfect employer when it comes to something like that? We are not. Is that part of my vision? Of course it is. It is something which I would absolutely love to be at a stage of a lot more maturity than where we are today, maybe in the next 12 to 24 months, where we have a new grad coming on board. We have a mentoring program. We assign them with someone who is more seasoned and see them through, like I said, the first 12 months of them joining the organization. We would like to make sure that they're given an opportunity to actually rotate between a couple of projects. They get a sense of the business overall before they choose a is the position which they would want for the long term. So these are all work in progress. So these are all not yet quite launched in the organization. So if the question is about what do we do now it's about making sure that we have someone assigned to the individual as a mentor or a buddy who can work with them like any other organization. But my vision for that is much bigger than that, to make it a lot more robust, where we give them a bigger opportunity to explore the business overall as well.
So I'm sure by the time Sumukh who's asked the question here, by the time you're onboarded, there will still be something out there, given the fact that you're working on it. So great. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think there's also a couple of questions that I can club here. There is a question by Sonal which says, that what are you doing to grow, retain, and assist women talent? And I think in the same breath, there's also a question around, are you okay to have women who are returning from a break into the profiles which we've opened for, which is data scientists? I think it kind of adds up in a way that, what are the policies which you have, which are, I would say, more women friendly? What are you doing to ensure that there is more participation of women and their growth in your organization? So if you could answer that.
Sure, great question. Actually, so one of the big focus areas for us, again, from a diversity standpoint, number of initiatives that we are looking at. So the reality today is that when I look at the numbers in the organization in terms of women representation or the gender representation in the organization, I have a fairly good ratio at the entry level, right? We bring in new freshers, from new grads from school, and the representation at the junior levels are fairly good. As we go along, as we climb the ladder, you see that dropping. And at a certain level, the drop is so dramatic that, there's hardly any representation in certain segments or the function, beyond a certain grade. So that to me is a big issue that we are trying to solve for, right? And so when we dig deeper into what is driving these issues for us as an organization, one thing which we saw is that, we have women employees, like I said, joining at the junior levels. They're with us for 2 to 3 years, and then, life, changes for them, either, getting married, having a baby, or so things change in their personal life. They take time off, and then we don't see them coming back, right? We lose complete touch with these employees, and we lose them at that point. So it was a big opportunity for us when me and my team actually looked at some of these, situations which were emerging in the organization, and we put a whole bunch of programs around that. So the question around what do we do in terms of supporting employees who are coming back from maternity, that's a huge focus for us. So last year we did this program in partnership with an external partner on second innings. We called it the second innings. So women who had actually taken a break in their career for whatever reasons be, and want to come back into the organization, how do we actually support them? First of all, how do we bring them back, and how do we support them in actually ramping up to the corporate world, right? So we have the second innings program. As part of the program, what we've done is, just to give you a little bit more double click on that. So we have 12 months we take them on as an intern. I mean, although it sounds very that title by itself was we had to sell it.
Apprenticeship, internship, you can call it whatever.
Exactly. And I mean, that intern title was a little bit of a sell we had to do with the candidates, but we told them it gives you the protection to kind of really learn the company in a very safe environment. You're here for 12 months. There are no performance appraisals like what other employees go through. Of course, you get performance feedback, but you're not part of the system like every other employee is. So, and at the end of the 12 months, the employer and the employee, they have a choice to make on whether they would want to continue this relationship, and if so, they convert over as a full-time employee. So we've done things like that. Then making sure that our infrastructure is geared towards supporting the women employees, like the nursing rooms in our offices, to ensuring that flexible work policy for women employees coming back from maternity is provided. All of those. In fact, we do have mentorship programs as well, which I would like to highlight. I mean, there are a couple of things which we have in the organization. One is, we call it the WOW, the Women for Women Network. I mean, it is a group of people coming together, women leaders actually talking about topics of interest on a very periodic basis. And Also, we have this mentoring program called Gurukul, which is where the leaders are actually, presented as mentors, and employees can choose which leader they want to be mentored by. So in those programs, we ensure that the women employees are given priority over the rest, to ensure that we groom them for the right levels of progression in the organization.
Right, and I think that is very much needed. I mean, just adding my personal bit here in terms of whatever we've been hearing from different organizations, and all the things which you mentioned kind of add up in terms of uh, providing that ecosystem. So some of the things which you mentioned, mentoring, or getting women from the big. So I think the 12-month internship that you mentioned, I think that's great. I think that's one of the, I would say, most. I can validate that by saying that one of the most, I would say, used mediums to get returning women back, because they also are very, at that time, conscious of the kind of organizations they would want to join, and see that if it's compatible with their work. So that's really great. I think I'm seeing two theme of questions here, and it's great they're coming in. So I'll take as much as possible. But from what I read here, there are a couple of questions around specifically the roles that we have opened up in this particular drive. So there is data sciences and data engineering roles that we have opened up, and I think the question is that how do these roles add up to the overall vision? I mean, you're trying to create a, again, this is going back to, I think, in a way, the question that I asked you, that what is in it for the employees, from the overall perspective, given the growth path PayU is on. But if I quote Preeti here, how is PayU adopting to a changing environment in technology? What are the core values of PayU that helps employ in achieving the vision of the company? There are other questions around, how, as a particular individual, as a data scientist, as a data engineer, I can contribute towards that growth of PayU. So would you like to add anything more to that apart from what you had mentioned earlier? Because I think that is a query that is being resonated by more than one person.
Yeah, no, it's a question which is very close to heart for me, because is one of the strategic goals which we have as an organization, not just PayU process overall or NASPERS overall, is AI, right? We know that that's the way of life for us, and that's the way for us to ensure we are able to get to our goals, in the most efficient manner. So, from that perspective, there is a huge amount of focus on AI within the organization, whether it be training, which we provide to our employees through our platform, or I mean, in fact, if I take a step back, there is a group of people that are focused on just ensuring that AI is a focus area, and that culture is incorporated in the organization, right?
Okay.
So whether it be from training, or whether it be people talking data, understanding data at every levels of the organization, it's not about just data scientists or data engineers in the organization to talk about data. You need to have the entire organization thinking data if you want to be successful in your AI journey. So that's why we need a culture shift, to actually get to that stage. So, I can talk forever if you give me a platform on AI and how passionate we are about it. So yeah, starting from training to culture to, like, making sure that the right tools are available for our engineers. I mean, so yeah, the whole works.
Okay, great. No, that's interesting. So and there are, again, as I said, a few questions coming in on the exact details of the virtual hiring drive, and I think for all those who are listening in, we are also doing a session on Thursday, a similar session on Thursday, where we will be having two people from the business. Siddharth and Piyush, I can mention their names, who will be answering specific questions around the job, and what will your responsibilities entail. So I think I will take some of these questions, with them as well. I think that will be one opportunity for all our audience to go deeper into each of the roles and answer specific questions in terms of what will you be doing on an everyday basis, how will the growth path be, and things around that. So do tune in for that. I will again keep this particular conversation more towards more from a employee benefits and the policy point of view of PayU, and the job specific details we can discuss there. Just going back to some of the uh, uh, other questions that we had, while we were signing up. Um, we are doing this particular hiring drive for women. There is a lot of focus, we do understand, across the board for diverse talent. Organizations are talking about it. It is an in thing. I wanted to know from you, both from an individual standpoint and the organization's view around, why does, diversity make sense for you? It obviously makes sense, which is why we are doing this drive, and you are trying to have more women. You alluded to that fact, earlier when you were mentioning that you were trying to have a certain diversity percentage. There are different reasons for everyone to do it. What are your reasons? Why do you think it is important to you and the organization?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, Pratik. I mean, it's an opportunity loss. Simple as that. If you don't do it, it's a huge opportunity loss. So let me just double click for you on that in a couple of aspects. One is, women normally brings a very, very unique perspective to the table that is super critical for us while we are making the business decisions. So if you really want to make sure that the decisions that you're making are balanced, and if you have to have a balanced view at the table, and if you don't have that unique perspective that you're looking at, then it's a huge missed opportunity, like I said. Secondly, from a customer perspective, if I look at it as more women actually gain financial independence and our customer profile is changing, it is important to design products which actually cater to the female audience as well. And this requires women workforce to actually share their understanding and insights. So it's extremely important from both angles. I mean, to have the balanced perspective and also having, making sure that whatever we are building is actually to the it's to the right audience, right? I mean, so it is very important to ensure that from both of those perspectives, we have the right set of gender representation in the organization.
Right. And I mean, we talked about it internally as well. Our founder, Anuranjita, she always shares a couple of examples which are, very, I would say, very interesting. Like, how a seatbelt of a woman is, a seatbelt of a car is never meant for a pregnant woman. I mean, it's just meant designed by someone who just, was a man and he never thought what will go on. So we get those examples, but I think it's great to hear from a point of view that when you are designing something, that perspective really matters. And the only reason why I asked this was that I don't need validation, but the more we hear from people like you who've been there long enough, it just kind of makes it even a stronger business case, which is what we all are trying to do here. I think Gauri has a personal question for you, which is that what are the challenges, if any, that you have faced in your journey as a woman in leadership? And I think there are very few out there, but what has been your story around it?
Yeah, no, I'd love to have a cup of coffee with Gauri and to give her more details on that. But actually, as a women leader in the organization, I mean, if I look at, the leaders that sit around the table with our CEO, I'm probably the only, the lady in the group, right? I mean, but has that ever come in the way of them accepting, the perspectives, accepting the points of view that we bring to the table? Never. I mean, it's never come to a point where I had to insert myself as from a gender standpoint. It's never even occurred to me. But then again, if you are sure about your space, and if you're sure about what you bring to the table, it does not matter. Gender by itself is not what is it as a differentiator there, right? I mean, so as long as you're good in what you do, I mean, you should be confident about being at any forum representing your views. Has there been challenges? Yeah, I mean, there's been challenges, times when, if I think about early on in my career, are things like, hey, how open are you for travel? That's a typical question I would get, right? I mean, how open are you for travel? I mean, how old are your kids? I mean, can you afford to pick up a bag and go to another place if there is a need? So, I proved that, very well that we can do it, because in my previous job at Alibaba, I was literally living out of a suitcase, right? I mean, I was on the road majority of the time. I had 19 countries that I was responsible for, and was from one place to the other. So times when 3 continents in a month. So we can do it. We can do it. It's about how you want to look at it. Of course, those biases come in when you're having initial conversations with an employer. Those doubts are always something which has come my way. But once you prove that you can do it, they don't for you any different.
That sounds exciting, and I mean, I remember a time when I used to kind of be, I would say, aspiring for that kind of a lifestyle, multiple flights, so many places at one go. But trust me, once you've done that, it kind of sounds a little like okay, it's a little more tiring than it sounds. Yes, it is exciting, but it is tiring as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those shoes are very, very lot of fun. So yeah.
I you know I was actually when we were kind of doing these sessions and we were thinking about challenges, and when kind of Gauri asked this question as well. I know specifically for a lot of people the last 10 months have been really tough, especially for those who are leading organizations, have been in charge of the well-being and the business as such of so many people. Any particular examples which you, I mean, we all were in it, but I just wanted to probably have anything from you which probably we will all remember this for the rest of our lives for sure. But from a work point of view, was there anything that you think you will take away saying that, oh God, I think that was something which just kind of totally blew me away and I was not ready for?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a really, really interesting last 10 months. I don't know whether you know or not. I joined PayU to lead their credit organization. Almost a year back, and credit vertical was new for them, and my charter was to make sure that it build a global credit organization for PayU. And a few months down the line, after I joined, the CEO comes to me and says, "Would you want to step into the CHRO role?" Right? I mean, so it's sort of like happened, and in a few months and after I joined, and I said yes to it. I took a few weeks to decide, but said yes to it. And believe it or not, 2-3 weeks after that was when the whole COVID situation hit. Right? I mean, it was already booming somewhere, but when it actually came to India was like literally 2 to 3 weeks after I took on the role. To me, it was an interesting time because that was exactly the time when our employees really needed support, to take them through a transition which they were struggling with. They didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how the business was going to run, whether our employees were going to be successful working from home, or whether business was going to hold up, lockdown, all of that stuff. So perfect opportunity, in my opinion, to have stepped into something which we really could create something impactful for our employees. I mean, and I could not have asked for anything better. Many people ask me this question about, like, was that challenging for you, new role, and all of a sudden COVID hit? I'm like, I mean, I loved it because that was just around the time when people really needed someone to care for them, someone to really look out for them, and sort of make sure that we show them the way in many ways on how do they adapt to this transition. So we did a number of things. I mean, I have a very strong team behind me. I mean, and we actually did a number of things, and without them I could not have even accomplished even a portion of it. Starting from initial days were about, hey, I mean, safety, health, well-being, how do we bring on new hires? We had made offers, people were waiting to join, and how do we bring them on? And what is this new remote work culture is going to be about, right? I mean, so a number of those came up, and the team quickly adapted to changing some of our processes and policies in the organization, starting from virtual onboarding for the new hires, to making sure that the employees were equipped with, facilities for productive working from home. I mean, making sure that they have a video conferencing facility, they have a laptop, I mean, connectivity, internet reach, all of that stuff. And we also established a 24-hour IVR line to help employees, be informed.
That's unique. Yeah.
So anytime they could call, any support that they needed, especially in initial days when people didn't know what this COVID was all about, right? I mean, so that was something which was super important. I mean, IT support, I mean, they are dialing into a call, they have no idea whom to, otherwise you could just walk over to the IT desk and say, fix my laptop, right? I mean, so these were important things in the early on days. And of course, we changed our health benefits to ensure that COVID coverage was there. We also provide employee assistance program for our employees, which is paid, 5 5 counseling sessions which we offer on anything legal, psychological, financial counseling from experts. So these were a whole slew of stuff, right? And our leaders did an exceptional job of stepping up and actually being connected with our employees, right? Doing town halls, periodic connects with them, whether it be a coffee chat, whether it be making sure that you have these fun social hours, which we do, all of that stuff. So they did a phenomenal job as well in ensuring that the employees felt comfortable with the transition. So as we went along, 3 months into COVID, 3-4 months into COVID, I mean, the needs of the employee actually changed. I mean, we actually went from not knowing what we were into to like, hey, now what next, right? I mean, so that was a time when we did a wellness survey. And based on the survey results that we got, like I mentioned earlier, we have a wellness committee that is in place, which is actually made of our business folks as well as the HR team coming together, talking about how do we solve for some of these issues which our employees are going through. So there's a Youth Thrive campaign which the team has launched. And some of the things which the team is actually working on or has launched is we put a snippet of for leaders, it's very different to lead in a virtual environment. They've never done this before. 100% virtual is something which they've never dealt with before, right? So for us to just give them some pointers on here are the things to watch out for, small little things, right? Don't send a message at 11 p.m. in the night and expect a response coming back to you at 11:30, right? I mean, so that's those little things which you need to be aware of as a leader, because the burnout in the organization is high. I still something which worries me still, right? I mean, our burnout rate is high. So, to actually take care of that, I mean, so ensuring that our leaders understand how do you really do a lead as a manager or as a leader in 100% tech world, right? So we had a whole bunch of stuff around that. We also have a campaign going on around switch off time. 7 p.m. is the switch off time. After that, if you really want to sign up for a meeting, that should be an exception and not a norm. And it becomes really difficult when you have multiple geographies and multiple time zones that you're working with. But as far as possible, try to balance it with a 7 p.m. cutoff. We also did half-day Fridays, which is, again, you log out at 2 p.m. Of course, many of us will actually be working, but we do not attend meetings, right? I mean, so at least you have time to things which you're supposed to. So it's a half-day Friday. If you want to take time off and keep that as part of your weekend, employees are more than welcome to do that as well. And we have something called Humans of PayU, talking about you've heard of the Humans of the Humans of Facebook series which is going on, right? I mean, so the Humans of PayU, which we have a number of our employees actually talking about their life experiences and posting it on the common intranet site. That has been gaining a lot of traction as well. So number of initiatives. I mean, I'm just mentioning a very, very few of the ones which the team has worked on or is working on.
That's great. I think most of the organizations, if you kind of put it together, I think there are a host of books that can be written on what employee benefits and the organizations who went through this year in COVID. So I think there is enough out there. It's everyone you talk to, people are just coming up with different methods, and we are still evolving, because it's now getting to the fact where all that tiredness and fatigue is stepping in. You still don't know when you get back to office. So thank you for sharing that. I think some of them were really unique. The helpline which you mentioned, I think that is something which I really kind of found it remarkable. The time of setting up, kind of an end date to things, even though it's a global culture. I think all those things kind of add up to just make it a little more, I would say, sane for everyone who's out there. I think I have a very interesting question coming in, which says that, from Abhiram, which says that, it seems like he's an HR professional, and he says, I'm very interested to know, your views on setting gender targets in organizations to promote diversity. I think it's a long-standing, I would say, discussion. We've kind of had it in different forums, but what's your take on it? Interesting to hear from you on that one.
Yeah, no, like you said, the long debated topic of a target for gender diversity. If you ask me, I'm somebody who's completely against that, and multiple reasons that actually strengthened my belief that a target is not what's going to gain you what you want to. My previous organization, like I said, at Alibaba, believe it or not, our diversity target was around 48 to 52% at any given point of time. If you ask anybody at Ali about what's your diversity target, what's your diversity drive, there's nothing that's talked about as a number, as a goal, and to me the learning there was it's not about chasing a number, right? It's about walking the talk. I mean, if I look at every leader in that organization that talks about having that balanced perspective and making sure that that's part of the DNA, it's phenomenal. It comes from top down. And that's sort of strengthened my belief. I mean, I always had this thing about let's not chase a number, but that particular experience in my career was just another, affirmation for me that, you don't have to have a number or a defined, slogan for diversity for you to really gain, what you want to get to, right? So, and I'm a strong believer, diversity is about culture. Diversity has to be part of your DNA. And number is very, very superficial.
Again, as I said,
you have to be aware as a leader as to where you stand. I mean, where you have the right representation, all of that stuff, right? But if you just chase a number, that's not going to gain.
I'm not a fan of numbers. I get that, and as I said, it is a debate. Everyone has a view. At an organization where I was, we were trying to do that, and then everyone was like, till the time it's not a part of my year-end goal sheet, I wouldn't do it. So put a number, do that for us. And I'm like, okay. So different views, different organizations. Glad to hear from you. I think Hema has asked a question in terms of the actual process. So Hema, you can drop in your queries here. You've mentioned that we will get back to you in terms of the actual process, and some details of this you will find in the next session as well. But be assured that you will get feedback, for this particular process, even if, and we'll give you an update on your application. So that is something that we will take care of. I think there's one question coming in from Abhishek, I think, which will probably be the last question for the day, because we're just kind of, pretty much reaching the top of the hour. So what are your thoughts on handling the brass tacks of setting targets in such a year and communicating the same to the employees? Like, what has your, view been about that when you've been discussing that with the business?
In terms of setting targets, as in performance targets?
Yeah, I think performance targets and how you're going about, because see, at the end of the day, everyone has to do business, and how have you kind of gone about setting those targets and just communicating that? But and I would also be interested to know, what has been your business's view on that one? Because ultimately,
actually, that's one big culture shift which we made when this situation changed for us with COVID, right? I mean, so we were actually a company that believed in annual goals, and we would set the goals. We would do a mid-year check-in, and then we would do a final end-of-year performance appraisal. So when COVID hit and things changed, we realized that things were changing very dramatically for both our customers and for our employees. I mean, this was a time of they didn't know what, like I said, what to expect. I mean, new environment, new construct of working from home, and your customer base is also actually going through a dramatic change. And we realized that if you set these long, 6-month, 12-month goals, it's not going to get us anywhere, right? It is not going to get us the kind of nimbleness and the agility that we need to adapt to the changing needs of the market. So we quickly changed to this construct of doing OKRs, which is your objectives and key results by quarter, right? So every 3 months, we have our managers and employees sitting together, defining as to what they want to accomplish in the next 90 days, right? Of course, aligned to your overall annual goals, but at the same time broken down into 90 days biteable chunks, right? At the end of 90 days, they again sit down, do a check-in on how they did in the last 90 days and set the goals for the next 90 days. So this gained us a huge amount of traction in terms of employee commitment, making sure that we are able to identify the risks which we have in the market, make the course corrections as quickly as possible, staying nimble and agile with making sure our priorities are also adapted and very quickly. So it's gained us a lot of traction in the organization, and that was one of the positive changes which I think, in my opinion, we made in the organization.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. I think that's good insight, again, from a point of view of how the organization is thinking, because whatever you decide, between the leadership and the management, it obviously trickles down into the daily targets and the monthly targets for everyone. So I think from that way, it just kind of sets the vision, right? So Thank you so much for that. I think we're just about to, kind of end this session. We'd just like to mention a couple of things for people who've tuned in. We'll be doing another session with, the team members and leaders from the data science and the data engineering teams of PayU on Thursday, 3 p.m., for which you will receive an invite pretty soon. So do tune in for that. If there are any questions that have remained unanswered through the chat today, please drop in your queries at the email ID provided in the chat box. We will get back to you as soon as possible with your query, with answers to your query. And at the end, I would just, like to say, Priya, how was your experience? I was actually at one point in time just kind of sifting through comments, and I was not able to get because there were so many coming in. So I think we've been able to cover all the sessions. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone who's kind of tuned in. I hope you found value in what we are doing, and you are more informed about the opportunity that you possibly will pick up. And it was nice to have, Priya, your views on this as well, more around what you're doing in PayU as a leader, what you're thinking, and how has your journey been. I think it was, for me as well, incredibly valuable. Any closing thoughts from you before we kind of wrap up the session for today?
Not really. I mean, thank you so much, Pratik. Thanks for facilitating this conversation, and thanks for everyone who's dialed in to this chat as well. I mean, if there are more questions, comments, anything that you're more curious to know about PayU, feel free to direct them, our way. I mean, Pratik, if you can help facilitate some of that, we're happy to feel some of those, because I would love for people to know a lot more about the organization that they are actually applying towards. And I think it would be our pleasure to kind of provide that information.
Great. Thank you, Priya. The link for this chat will remain on our YouTube page. So in case you want to go back and revisit or at a later stage, you can do that. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. And thank you so much, Priya, for kind of coming together and answering all the queries patiently. We look forward to having you more as a part of this virtual hiring drive. And look forward to having all the audience in the next session, which is on Thursday. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.